The driver involved in a crash that a Penfield High School student killed that student was under the influence of drugs. 16-year-old Matthew Bittner was struck while crossing Chestnut Street near Elm on Saturday night. As Dan Schreck tells us tonight, the accused driver could face more charges. Dan?
Don, that's absolutely right. A grand jury could choose to indict, but this all depends on the amount and the quality of evidence gathered at the scene. Flashing lights reflected on the rain-soaked pavement early Saturday. A 16-year-old Matthew Bittner lay in the road, hit by a driver police say was high and behind the wheel without a license. The Penfield teen died from his injuries on Sunday. The 39-year-old driver released on an appearance ticket, charged with DWAI for marijuana and aggravated unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, both misdemeanors.
In the future, the district attorney's office can present the case to the grand jury. The grand jury can supersede these charges in an indictment and will most likely include a manslaughter charge.
But attorney Vincent Moranti says when marijuana is involved, things get complicated because there's no roadside test. To detect drunk driving, police use a breathalyzer to measure a person's blood alcohol level. If other substances are suspected, additional expertise is required. In New York State, some of that expertise comes from drug recognition experts, or DREs.
Great to see you guys. Today, tomorrow...
For certification, officers undergo more than a week of classroom instruction, testing, and field training. A DRE was called to the scene on Chestnut, but Moranti says that system is not fail-proof.
If the individual refuses a blood test or the officer does not get a court order for blood, then there's no more evidence. The evidence will be limited just to an officer's observations and also any statements that the defendant might make.
Now, the driver, who police have yet to identify, told officers because of the rain he did not see Bittner crossing the road until the last second. That's when he says he swerved in an unsuccessful attempt to avoid him.
New action is underway to address serious safety concerns at Rochester's Franklin High. Tonight, robocalls are going out to parents district-wide. Tomorrow, the recent violence will be the topic of a superintendent's conference day at Franklin. This is not what union leaders are calling for, but district leaders say some of what they want just is not possible. Right around the corner from Franklin High, North Express convenience store got a visit this morning from Superintendent Dr. Leslie Myers-Small. Owner Salah Ail told me she asked about the behavior of Franklin students. Ail says students are not a problem in his store, but there are problems inside Franklin.
Franklin is on fire, and we have to address the needs at Franklin immediately.
Board member LeBron supports transferring disruptive students to other schools. The district's unions want them to be put on remote learning. Those options simply aren't possible. The school district's general counsel tells me involuntarily moving a student is against state education law. The district says the superintendent is developing a plan, meeting with people in the Franklin neighborhood and school staff members. LeBron plans to meet with the superintendent tomorrow to address what she calls root causes of the violence in schools.
We had COVID and we're remote. And now we're asking all these kids to come back. They don't have the foundation of relationships, of having known each other, of being in the same space. And then you have gangs that have obviously increased over the pandemic, both in the city of Rochester, which have infiltrated our schools.
LeBron supported the use of a private security firm to help out at arrival and dismissal times. They are now on duty at 11 high schools for the next month. Anthony Hall is also on duty at Franklin. There today as students left, volunteering as part of a newly formed community group.
A familiar face. I know a lot of the kids because of my work. It's very important that you have the community involved in the welfare of their children.
Tonight, parents in Rochester will receive that robocall asking if they support Rochester police officers outside high schools at arrival and dismissal times. Results of that robocall polling should be known later this week. The board will consider the results at their meeting next week. Time in decades, the Monroe County Legislature could be shaken up. All 29 seats are up and 22 of them are contested. For Democrats, it's a chance to win the majority of seats for the first time in 3 decades. As 13 Wham's Jane Chaco reports, there's a lot at stake for both parties. Jane?
Jenny, Republicans have held on to the majority in the legislature for nearly 30 years, but Democrats are confident they're chipping away at their control. For the first time in a long time, it's not clear which party will wind up with the majority after Election Day. Democratic and Republican leaders continue to make their case to get their candidates' votes.
This election series is about serving the constituents, the residents here. And that's why it's really important, because this is where it starts at the local level.
Bernie Iacovangelo, Monroe County Republican Committee Chair, says the legislature is productive with the current party split of 15 Republicans and 14 Democrats. Last summer, 5 Democrats broke away from their own party to create the Black and Asian Democratic Caucus, often siding with Republicans to create a supermajority.
When there's a checks and balance and there's an opportunity for a party to examine the other party's proposals, you don't have situations where money spent without any kind of controls.
Zach King, Democratic Committee Chair, is hopeful the balance of power will shift.
It'll be the first time in my lifetime that Democrats have controlled the county government. From the numbers that we saw from early voting and absentees, Democrats are outnumbering Republicans in certain places 2 to 3 to 1. Overall, we're seeing a great drive in Democratic enthusiasm.
As of October, there are 75,000 more registered Democratic voters than Republicans. Iacovangelo believes Republican voters will show up to support the status quo. But King is optimistic his candidate's messaging will resonate and lead to a Democratic victory.
We'll see a lot less dysfunction in government. That's not to say that Democrats are going to entirely get along or entirely go along by any means. But it is to say that folks will make sure that they put the work first, not necessarily their own personal politics.
And if the Democrats take the majority, they'll do so with the Democratic County Executive Adam Bello at the helm. We'll have election coverage tomorrow night and updates on each legislature race on 13wham.com.